Good morning. It's good to see you. These opening words were written by Andrea Hawkins Camper. Blessed are we. Blessed are we who gather with open hearts together in this space, in this undefinable space today. Blessed are we, the chalice lighters of resistance, justice, love, and faith. Blessed are we, the heretics, the outcasts, the walkers of our own way. Blessed are we, the border crossers, the refugees, the immigrants, the poor, the wanderers who are not lost. Blessed are we, the transgressors, the trespassers, the passers-by, the cause takers, the defiant, the compliant. Blessed are we, the hand extenders, the sign makers, the protesters, the protectors. Blessed are we, the trans women, the trans men, the non-binary, the cisgender, the multi-gender, the no gender. Blessed are we, the friend, the stranger, the lonely, the hidden, the visible, the authentic. Blessed are we who rise in solidarity. Blessed are we who cannot. Blessed are we who do not. Blessed are we, for this is beloved community. This is who we are. I invite you to join in lighting your chalice and speaking the words of our covenant. It is wonderful to have so many different chalices, so many different flames, so many different ways to gather ourselves up and to create this circle of community. As spread out as we are, still we gather ourselves and collect the fire of our tradition, collect this blessing. Please join in the covenant. The words are in the chat. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to respect the nurturing power within all of us. Thus do we covenant. I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, We Would Be One. The words will be in the chat.
Living for a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning of who we are, and turns us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free. Truth, love, and justice strive to make us free.
It is that time in our service when we open our wonder boxes. During the pandemic, young people between the ages of 0 and 12 may sign up to have wonder boxes delivered to their houses. If your child is not currently on the wonder box list and would like to be, you can sign up by clicking the link that will appear in the chat. So let's see what's in our wonder boxes this week. I have, Legos. So many Legos. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. And if you are under the age of 3, you got Duplos, which are just Legos you can't swallow. All right, but I wonder what we are going to do with these Legos. Oh, that's right, I remember. This week, we are going to think about what a beloved community that is inclusive of all people might look like. What kinds of homes, stores, schools, playgrounds, parks, and libraries would be in the beloved community? How would these places show that each and every person is important? How can we make sure these places are fair for everyone? How would they encourage learning? Where would people go to vote? How would we promote peace in our beloved community? How would we care for and honor the earth in this community? Now that's a lot of questions, and you don't have to answer them all this morning. But in thinking about those questions, your task is to use these Legos to build one or more indoor or outdoor spaces that you would want to be in your beloved community. And just a little heads up, I know that many of you have more Legos at home and you may be inspired to add to the ones that we sent to you, which is of course allowed and a wonderful idea. However, in a couple weeks, you will be invited to drop these buildings off at church, where we will put them together into a big Lego town and use them in a very special service. So if you add your own Legos, you need to do so with the understanding that you are donating those pieces to our church Lego collection. Okay, so I will check back at the end of the service, and I can't wait to see what Lego buildings and outdoor spaces you create for our beloved community. And one more thing, if you have a mural that you created last week that was not finished by the end of the service and now is finished, you're welcome to share that when I check back in at the end as well. So you can go and find that before I come back. All right, let's get building.
The reading this morning is from Jack Kornfield, a Buddhist teacher, and it is about the middle way. Learning to rest in the middle way is about learning to trust in life itself. It is like learning to swim. I remember first taking swimming lessons when I was 7 years old. I was a skinny, shivering boy, flailing around, trying to stay afloat in a cold pool. But one morning there came a magical moment lying on my back when I was held by the teacher and then released. I realized that the water could hold me up, that I could float. I began to trust. Trusting in the middle way, there is an ease and a grace, a cellular knowing that we too can float in the ever-changing ocean of life that has always held us.
Could you love me if I don't look like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true.
If I stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't look like you?
Could you love me if I don't think like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true.
If I stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't think like you?
Life's a burning candle, and it would be a shame
if we ignore the difference between the smoke and the flame.
Could you love me if I don't pray like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true.
If I stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't pray like you?
Could you love me if I don't pray like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true.
If I stare a little longer, will I see myself in you? Could you love me if I don't pray like you?
This moment is a miracle, so why not find a way to be here and be grateful that we share another day?
Could you love me if I don't love like you? Is it deeper? Is it stronger? Something hidden, something true.
If I stare a little longer, will I find myself in you? Could you love me if I am not like you?
This morning, one of the ways that we share our love with the world, one of the ways that we stretch our love out into the world is by continuing our practice of the Give It Away offering. This morning, we are giving our offering to the program called 68 Hours of Hunger. And we are delighted to have Sue Abizade here this morning to talk to us about this program that we are going to support. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you, many familiar faces. And last time that you invited me, I was speaking live at PEA. I think it was last February about this time. And a few short weeks later, the whole world turned upside down. We were so overwhelmed by your generosity. And it was just so timely because it's been quite a year, as you all know. But I am grateful to have the opportunity to update you on our program. And I'll start just with a quick summary of the program for those of you who are not familiar with it. N68 Hours is a New Hampshire-based nonprofit that started about 10 years ago in Dover. We're now in 7 states, helping about 40 communities. And the 68 hours of hunger that we're trying to end refers to the time between the school-provided lunch on Friday and the school breakfast on Monday. And it's about 68 hours. And sadly, there are kids all across the country, including right here in our community, that are hungry on the weekends. So we provide a backpack or a bag of food for the weekend to help the kids through the weekend, so they don't have to worry about not having enough food. And we do that through the schools. And our Exeter area program, which serves SAU 16, started about 8 years ago, believe it or not. The time has flown by. All N68 programs are complete 100% volunteer, self-funded by donations, food donations, and monetary donations. So right now in our program, we're helping about 100 kids every week. So, you know, it's about $10 per bag of food. So it's about $1,000 per week. And this year, of course, was a little different with the pandemic. But we're proud to say that we were able to, right from the start, when schools closed in March, we were able to continue the program and help our families. And actually at one point we were up to, I think, about 116 families. So what we did was, at the time, the school district was providing grab and go lunches for families. So we partnered with those locations and were able to meet our families that way. And we keeping in mind the safety and health of our volunteers, we distributed every other week. So we would give a bag of food for the first weekend and then a $20 grocery gift card for the second weekend. So we did that all till the end of the school year, which worked out really well, thanks to our wonderful team of volunteers, which over in the spring included some of the school nurses. And then for the first time ever, we did a summer program. You know, we kept in contact with the school nurses and realized the food was really helping our families. Typically, they go every week in the summer to the food pantry in Exeter or to the Gather Summer Meals for Kids program and their mobile markets. But we decided this year we wanted to do everything that we could to support our families because it was such a difficult time. So we did that through the summer. And then again, it worked out really well. And then in the fall, when school started, we went back to our weekly deliveries of food. It was a little bit of a challenge because, as you know, this hybrid model, some schools were remote, the kids were, and it changed week to week. But we were tried to stay as flexible as we could. And we have continued with our weekly deliveries. We go to all the elementary schools, Cooperative Middle School, Exeter High School, and also the Great Bay Charter School in Exeter. So as I mentioned, it's about 100 kids. We deliver to the schools. There's still a remote lunch pickup on Saturdays. And we did that for a while. We also have a wonderful volunteer who actually delivers to about 8 kids at their homes, the kids who, you know, whose parents had a hard time for a variety of reasons getting the food other ways. So let's see, again, we hope that these kids now can be assured every Friday that they're going to have food for the weekends. Their tummies will be full. It's one less thing that they have to worry about, because so many of these families really are struggling. And there was a challenge this year with food supply, as you know, going to the grocery store. We used to order all our food from Walmart. As of March, they could no longer take large orders. And so now we've worked with Market Basket, placing orders every week. Sometimes things come in, sometimes they don't. You know, it was crazy. Some weeks we couldn't even get macaroni and cheese or soup or some of the staples, but they have been really helpful. Hannaford and Shaw's both have supported our program. So we're feeling the love from our community. And as you know, Gwen Kenny has been an incredible volunteer. If you have any specific questions, I'm sure she will have the answer. She is amazing. And we're working with a smaller team of volunteers, but very dedicated. And we hope that we can continue to be there for these families who rely on us to help them through difficult times. And especially for the kids to know that, it's one thing that they don't have to worry about on Fridays is, will I have food this weekend? And also, I know I've mentioned in the past when I've spoken to you, the educational impact of going from being food insecure to being fed from week to week is just huge. Kids just 50% higher reading scores, 30% higher math scores. They're much more likely to successfully complete third grade, which is a primary indicator for high school graduation. So we hope that we're giving these kids who are part of our community a better chance. Not only are we keeping their tummies full, but we're giving them a better chance to be successful in school and in life. And we do that with the incredible support of our community and groups like you. So thank you for welcoming me back and for being interested in hearing about our program again. And as I said, your ongoing support means so much to our program.
Thank you so much. And it's
Thank
good
you
to
for
see
having me. And also, as I said, Gwen can answer your questions, but I'll also leave our email address in the chat box in case you have any questions or would like to contact me directly. Thank you.
Thank you. There is also a link in the chat so that you can go to our website to make a donation for 68 Hours of Hunger, or you can write a check for 68 Hours of Hunger and you can send it to the church office and we'll bundle them all up and send them over there. Make sure that children in our community are fed. And I really noticed, Sue, as you were talking about this program, that you kept talking about our families. And this month we're talking about beloved community, and just hearing in the smallest words that you use to talk about your program, that you just had that embrace of love. So the morning offering for End 68 Hours of Hunger will now be joyfully received and then given to keep children and their families fed. Thank you for your generosity. Last week, Heather invited us into meditation with these words. May I remember that each breath is a chance to begin again. May I be gentle with myself when I am struggling. May I love my whole self with all my complexities and paradox. May I learn to rest in the center of stillness deep within. It's such a gentle and generous meditation. It is also, I found, a very challenging one. Each breath a chance to begin again. To be gentle when I am struggling. To love my whole self with all my complexities and paradoxes. That is a gorgeous challenge. So I read it for you again, and then invite you to hold on to whichever part of it is the most generous or the most challenging for you this morning. May I remember Each breath is a chance to begin again. May I be gentle with myself when I am struggling. May I love my whole self with all my complexities and paradox. May I learn to rest in the center of stillness deep within. Sweet to hear birds singing and human music together. One of the gifts of this past year is being able to meet with people who are usually too far away to be with, because we didn't do everything online before. This past winter, I had the good fortune to take a class with an old friend in San Francisco. We met getting our degrees in fine arts, but she has worked in colleges since then, linking the work in academics with real life in communities. This is sometimes called service learning, but it means lots of things now. But most of all, it means connecting people who are learning theory with practices in real life. And sometimes it's service projects, and sometimes it's relationships. And most of all, it's making sure that people who didn't always find connections, find connections. So while she's been doing this work in the world, she has noticed that white people like herself, like me, not infrequently say and do things that come across to people of color as being, well, distancing and sometimes disempowering and, well, what we would call racist. And she thought, well, part of my work here must be to give everyone a hand with this because it's getting in the way of the connections. And so she got thinking about how do we give people a hand with that? So she and a colleague started running groups for white people so that white people had a place to notice and learn the things that we did that we often didn't mean to do and sometimes didn't even notice that we had done because it's just the water we are swimming in. So over the winter, I got to meet with this group of people who, in fact, were from all over the country. Usually they meet in a living room or a conference room in San Francisco, but Zoom room it was. And we spent some weeks together, getting to know each other, getting to trust each other. We spent some time doing mindfulness exercises, settling into ourselves, learning to just be who we were in this moment and that was fine. Before we took on this other piece of work, it was an important part of the practice in this group to just be ourselves and be okay. And then we talked about the fact that our bodies carry history from our families and from probably older than our families, about what's happened to our people, violence that's happened to white people, violence that's happened to people of color. And we talked about how that might affect how everyone acts in the world. And then eventually we got to the point where we were in smaller groups even than our usual class group, invited to tell each other stories of times that we had done things that we realized, sometimes in the moment and sometimes afterwards, things that we realized were racist. Meaning things that we did as white people that were distancing or disempowering or insulting or any of those things to a person of color. And I remember that when we got into our group, we sort of said, who's going to go first? And we all sort of looked like, I hope it's someone else. But then we started to tell stories. And some of the stories were sort of broad. Some people work in colleges, and so they could see how some broader decisions got made that meant that people of color as a sort of population were at a disadvantage in their context. And then we got to telling more particular stories, the kind of stories that we often just don't tell because they're embarrassing. And it was useful to have that mindfulness practice, both shared among us and individually, to be settled in ourselves and to have shared that settledness together, to know that that was something that we had to hold us all. So I told a story about something that happened at church in our sanctuary on Elm Street. A few years ago, we invited a leader from Black Lives Matter Boston to come up and speak to us. And he was amazing. And you all were amazing. You listened so deeply to him. And then you stayed after the service and listened again and asked questions that really made a connection. It was a good thing. And I had publicized this in the town and at Phillips Exeter Academy, inviting people to join us. Well, the next week, we had some very different service, as often happens week to week. And through the door came 3 Phillips Exeter Academy students, 2 young women who were white and 1 young man who was brown. I assumed he was African American, but I don't really know. Well, I decided the moment they walked through the door that they must have intended to come for the Black Lives Matter speaker, and that somehow it had gotten mixed up about which was the correct day. And I started to worry a little bit about maybe I'd given someone the wrong information, or maybe the invitation had gotten mixed up and maybe they weren't going to be comfortable in whatever service it was we were doing that week. I think it was more particular to our congregation. And so I turned all of this story over in my mind, a story that I had entirely made up, of course. And I decided that I should say something to them, to sort of apologize that this wasn't the week that they were expecting. So I did that. I said, well, you must have been expecting the Black Lives Matter speaker. And they gave me the blankest look. They had no idea there had been a Black Lives Matter speaker in our congregation the week before, and that's not what they had come for. They had heard something about our congregation, decided it sounded good and interesting, and decided to check it out one morning. Completely unrelated to anything else that had been going on. And of course, as soon as I received that blank look, I thought, oh, I made a whole series of assumptions here. And now I have given them some sense that maybe they should have come for the Black Lives Matter service and not this one. And I sort of indicated that I thought that would be the reason that they might come. Maybe that what we were doing wasn't relevant to young adults from the academy, and also that that would be the one thing they would be interested in. So I spent the rest of the service stewing about that. And I talked to them after the service, and they stayed for coffee hour and had apparently great conversations with you all at coffee hour and seemed pleased with their morning. And they did not come back. Now, it is common that PEA students come for a week or two and don't come back. Our services are a little early for them, for one thing. But it was the set of assumptions that I made about why they would come and what they would find valuable. It was the part that was racist. That I thought that what was happening that morning might not be of interest to these students was also a little ageist. But most of all, it was, I think, seeing a person who was African American or Black come through the door and assuming that Black Lives Matter was the connection point for them. It was just assuming a whole series of things. And the thing that was really interesting to notice is that it was actually my anxiousness about getting it right or having things be a certain way that compelled me to say something. I might have just said, oh, I wonder if they thought they were coming for the Black Lives Matter service. Oh, well, this is a great service too, and gone merrily on my way. But that being worried about it being right was actually the thing that drove the interaction not being great. So that's one of the things that I learned in this group for white people learning about racism, is that in many instances, it's not my ideas about people of color that cause the problematic interactions. It's my own stuff about being right or being perfect or having things be in neat categories or being in control of how things go next that actually drive the problematic interactions. So that is a really interesting revelation for me about how racism functions in my life and in many white people's lives. So I'm also clear that worse things have been said, probably worse things by me, and that worse things have happened to that young man. And in some ways, it makes it a great spot to learn because it's not so painful that it can't be sifted through and learned from. And yet it connects to all these other things. So in trying to undo racism and a whole bunch of other things, it turns out that in addition to learning about how the structures in our society work and how we all have unconscious bias about race, it's useful to work on these other parts of ourselves that we don't usually think of as being connected to race or any of a number of other things, because working on those things unhooks the ties that keep things from making real connections. And this is the place where there is so much embarrassment and shame that comes up. And so we tend to just put a lid on the stories and the mistakes and not talk about them. And we would be so much more effective at ending racism and ending all of the things in our society that are so hard and destructive for people if we could find the spaces to talk about the times that we've done things and figure out what's actually happening to let those things happen. This was an essential premise of the group that I took part in, that our society tends to say either you're a good person or you're really racist. And those are your options. And so, of course, you have to choose being a good person. But the reality is that there's mostly middle ground, that mostly there are a whole bunch of good people living in that middle space, being good-hearted and good-intentioned and loving and doing things that are racist and things that are not, and growing into a new understanding of the world. None of us are pure. That is true of 100,000 things, whether it's racism or sexism or classism or homophobia or gender assumptions, environmental choices, how we treat our siblings. It is endless. May I love my whole self with all my complexities and paradoxes. We have to live in the balance of accountability, a place where we see and articulate and are honest about the mistakes that we make. The balance between that and an awareness that we are living in this middle ground. Not perfect and not terrible. The accountability comes from finding ways and places to be honest about where we do fall short of our ideals, our commitments, our covenants. Figuring out ways to repair and to be more aware next time. And always remembering that we can't be perfect, that we are living in the middle, and that is where we're always starting over again. That we have to lean back into a love that is bigger than our mistakes, a love that is bigger than our embarrassment. We do all of this work in the context of being Universalists. We have this great big long name and we don't talk about it that often. Universalists say that you don't have to do something or say something special to be worthy of love, to be worthy of the biggest love. That we read originally the Christian tradition and now the world to say there is a love that is so big that it is not willing to give up on anyone. It's not willing to let anyone go. Universalists say that our work is not to please a God for salvation, but to try to end the immense suffering that is happening in the world right now. That this is where the hell is in all the suffering around us right now. And it turns out that part of that may mean ending the judgment and the perfectionism in ourselves, so that we don't get tangled up in it when we try to offer love to this bruised and hurting world. That is beloved community, that balance of accountability and that love that actually absolutely insists that everybody's in. We never give up on anyone, not you, not me, not anyone. That is beloved community that we work to build every day.
I am ready to see these amazing Lego creations that you have made. So I will show you mine to start with. My creation was that I made portable nature, because I thought about how some people, for a variety of reasons, where they live or their physical capabilities, are not able to go out and experience nature. And so I thought, what if we could bring nature to people on some sort of vehicle and just have it delivered right to them? And of course, this would be a fully electric vehicle that charges, with solar and wind. So it wouldn't put any carbon emissions out there. And Colin made a statue to stand at the front of the beloved community that welcomes people with open arms. Now, I thought this statue actually looked a little scary, so I have been trying to find a way to add a smile to his face so that he doesn't scare people away. And Elizabeth reminded me of the importance of loose parts, because she made something and smashed it, and made something and smashed it, and did that over and over again, and mixed the pieces in ways that I thought were wrong. And but then I realized they weren't, and that's what she needs in her beloved community, is things to build and smash and build and smash. All right, and now I'm gonna look through and see what other people built. So move this over here. Let's see. Ooh, I see the DeWitts have some very cool things. And you guys, I'm going to get descriptions of these. We're going to see these again in a few weeks after we collect them. So I see the Lambs built something spectacular. I see the Francors, Moira and Betty. It looks like you built maybe some nature there. I see the Reed family has built what looks like a beautiful home for some people to live in. I see the Clarks have built, I'm not sure what that is, but it looks amazing. All right, did I miss anybody? I don't know if I missed anybody. Oh, look, Leo. I think Leo maybe built and smashed, just like Elizabeth. So that's perfect. Can't wait till you guys can play together. All right, so you guys, these are awesome creations. Oh, and did anybody, you could also hold up your murals right now too, if you have one of those that you made last week and you weren't ready to share. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do with these Lego creations. The very first step is to put them somewhere safe and save them for next week. And if you wanna keep working on them, that's fine. You can always add to them, but keep them safe for next week, because next week we are going to add some people to our beloved Lego community. And you don't have those wonder boxes yet, but they will be delivered before next Sunday, so you can look forward to that. And then after we add people to our creations, you will be invited the following week to drop them off at church. I will send out specific instructions on how to do that. And then Kendra and I are going to figure out how to use them as part of a very special service, probably sometime during March. So thank you for creating these buildings for our beloved community. And I am so excited to see them up close in a few weeks.
It's a joy to sing with you all. I feel like I can hear you. Before we go off into our days, into our weeks, please join in our benediction, this blessing for each other and for this beloved community. And then stay if you can for coffee hour and conversation. Go in peace, speak truth, give thanks each day. Respect the earth and all creatures, for they are alive like you. Care for your body. It is a wondrous gift. Be gentle with yourself. Live simply. Be of service. Be guided by your faith and not your fear. Go lightly on your way. Walk in a sacred manner.